Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. Kevin, good evening, sir. We're back to evening again.
We're back to evening.
Man, a lot of things have happened since we last recorded, right? We've celebrated your birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
And Father's Day.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So good things.
Any big news in your life?
Well, you know, it's not so much big news for me. Well, it is big news, but it's not new news for me, I should say. It is new public news, though, that my youngest daughter, Maddie, and her husband, Lance, are expecting. And
congratulations!
They're going to be expanding their family in January of 2022. Yeah, so that's exciting news, and yeah, that is public now. So
they
you don't have to keep that secret anymore.
They decided just to get to it, didn't they?
Yeah, literally and figuratively, apparently.
I mean that with all due respect. It wasn't all that long ago.
Man, the moving detail when we were helping them move, there were several members of Strength and Honor there helping out, and there was lots of comments made about the play set that was in the backyard of the house that they had purchased, and all kinds of comments and innuendos about little ones. So apparently they were listening.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. Was she pregnant at the time of all that, or is that I don't know. I can't remember.
Oh, when they were moving? No.
Right.
No.
Okay. All right. Or if she didn't know it.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That is big news, and I know you being a grandpa and your wife being a grandma, that's not new because
this will be grandbaby
Taylor
number
and Anthony and their
3
two children, right?
Yeah.
This is old hand now.
I tell you, it's awesome though. It's only going to get better. I'm telling you, man. It is every bit as good as they say it is.
Okay. Well, there you go. Congratulations, and your birthday's coming up.
Yes, indeed.
And not only is your birthday coming up, but something else big is coming up for us here on this awesome podcast.
2-year anniversary, baby.
2-year anniversary.
We've been doing this a lot.
It's amazing. Yeah. Actually, when I was drafting the LinkedIn post that I put out today, I was thinking, as you know, I put out time seems to speed up as you get older, and man. It seems like we just started. It really does. We haven't talked about that in a while, but yeah, all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, we've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah.
We have over 100 episodes.
This is 103 that we're recording tonight. Yeah, it does seem like it's gone by in the blink, but one of the things that I do notice is, I think back to the first couple of times we recorded, and we were fine. We're having a great conversation, and then we'd hit the record button and we'd both forget how to talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So apparently we're over that now. Yeah.
Things seem to roll along a little easier than they did back then.
We can talk better. Maybe not all that good yet.
Still not perfect. We got a ways to go. Continuous improvement.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. I'm good.
So we had a great episode last week, great conversation with Carrick and Robin, and of Sweat Fredericksburg. And if you've not checked this what's the official term? Boutique, is that right?
Boutique Fitness Studio.
There we go. All right, we got it now. We don't want to get Robin mad at us for saying that wrong.
I heard you went when I went in there today to work out. They told me that you were in there earlier.
I did make a trip over there and went through their. They call it HIT, right? The 60 class. They call it HIT. I think I'll just call it HURT.
Okay.
No, it was it's a self-paced thing, and it's absolutely exactly like Robin described it. All ages, all stages, and no pressure. You work at your own pace, and it was a cool experience. And it's for me, it's been a long time since I've engaged in any kind of group fitness activity like that, and man, it just reminded me of how much I miss it.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like it's things that you need to do and you will absolutely benefit from doing that you would probably never do on your own. It's certainly not with those number of repetitions and at that intensity level. And, that intensity level is probably a bit of a misnomer if you watched me in the first class. But we'll dial that up as I get my ass back in shape. I
asked her how you did, and I think her quote, I may not get this exactly right, but it was something like, yeah, I kicked his ass.
She was just making sure she had 911 on speed dial. Where's the AED? Well, just in case we might need.
It's good. HIT stands for high intensity interval training.
Yes.
And it's circuit training. It's just full body. You're going for 60 minutes. It's a beautiful thing.
It was very cool. But like I said, it's at your own pace. There's you got plenty of room to, in your space, your workout area, and the instructions are communicated to you very clearly. And then the repetition for that particular block is up on the screen. And man, I would encourage you, if you've been thinking about it, pull the trigger. Absolutely pull the trigger. It's a cool experience, and I will be back again and again, no doubt.
I look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, Robin was funny. I look forward to seeing you there too. And Robin was funny. She's like, you signed up like sight unseen. I said, well, technically sight unseen, yes, but I kind of, I felt like I knew a little bit about the place after talking with those guys for an hour. So it definitely wasn't. I wasn't going into it blind, even though it was technically sight unseen.
Right. Welcome. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing you there. So, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, it was your turn to pick this topic, and I'm excited to have this conversation. I think it's something that's very applicable in many aspects of our lives, and it'll be cool to talk about. So, what is it? What'd you pick?
All right, the title of today: Never Town It. Wow. All right, here we go. Take two. Never tear down a fence until you know why it was put there in the first place. Never tear down a fence until you know why it was put there in the first place. And there's all kind of different ways to say that, probably more eloquently than I just did.
Right.
You get the point.
I get the point.
I first heard about this. I didn't know who originated the quote. I do now, but I heard it when I was on active duty in the Coast Guard. I was stationed in the Pentagon, and I worked for a 3-star Army general named John Van Alstyne. Amazing guy. He was an amazing guy. Was there on 9/11 when we were all there, and ended up taking a very significant leadership role in the Pentagon's response to that, the military's response to that. From the personnel side, he was a fascinating guy to watch. But anyway, he was routinely putting out quotes to the staff on a variety of things, and I remember that one because it resonated with me. As he never got into a lot of explanation, but he would give the quotes, or sometimes he would send them out in emails or put them on the top of memos so that you could see them, as I recall. And I remember this one, and it stuck with me, and I never forgot it. And I thought that would be a great one to have for a podcast. And now when I go back and do a little bit of research on it and find out who it is originally attributed to, that also was interesting to me, because G.K. Chesterton, right? Is that how you say it?
I believe so.
Basically a Christian apologist, has written all kinds of amazing books and well-reasoned journeys through the psychology of Christianity and so on, all of that doesn't matter, because he is the one who, in the literature, a lot of people say, came up with it originally. And I also read, I'm sure you did too, John F. Kennedy. That was one of his favorite quotes,
Right.
that he used quite a bit. So, yeah, anyway, just on the face value of it is powerful. But when you start to peel the layers of it back, it's even more powerful. So tell me what your initial thoughts are.
So I found the same information that you did, that, it was really, made popular by Kennedy, but it actually comes from Chesterton's book back in, the 20s, 1929 or something like that.
Right.
Called The Thing. I don't know. Did I say that? The Thing? Yeah, and it, it's, when you first sent it to me as a title, I thought, all right, well, that'll be interesting to see what direction we both go with it. But ultimately, I think we found similar information about it. I just think it's so applicable, and you can use it in many different areas of your life. And I just wanted to have a more in-depth discussion about that, and give you some examples of where you could apply it. And I've seen where the lack of adherence to this advice, maybe because it wasn't known, has created problems for people.
You bet. In their lives. And well, the reason that it came to mind for me right at this time is because excuse me, there's just so many. Our country is in chaos right now. And it is going through rapid change, and there are many things that are being challenged about what I would say traditional American values, traditional American culture, and I don't think it's a bad idea to examine and re-examine and reconsider any of those things. But if you just make a snap judgment to say, wow, this part of our culture is not right, is not good, and we need to get rid of it, without really understanding where it came from or why it's that way. And that's why it popped to mind. But you're right. And I'll share examples tonight of specific examples where when you don't take the time to realize, why things are done the way they're done, what the context of what the setting is, what the context is, why those things were put in place in the first place. And it's just beautiful that it's both real in that if you see a fence. I remember as a kid, here's another thought that popped in my mind. I remember as a kid driving out west, and which is where I grew up, and I remember seeing these random pieces of fence sitting out in the middle of like what apparently would seem to be nowhere for me just as a kid, and I didn't know. I thought, why is there a fence next to the road that starts and stops in a total length of about 100 yards? Why is it there? What is going on with that piece of fence? And it doesn't look like all the rest of the fence was torn down and that just happened to be left standing.
Right. It was intentionally erected there by itself.
Intentionally erected, and I thought, why is that there? And of course, I found out later that there's two things. One is the snow barrier in the winter.
Makes sense.
It would cause the wind to slow down enough to drop the snow right there, rather than on the road. And the same thing in the desert. It's a sand barrier for wind stopping debris from blowing, tumbleweeds and whatever. And they put a segment of fence up where there's a predominant wind that cuts across the road. Well, there you go. If me, as a kid, going along, why is this fence there? And I decided to tear it down because I didn't know what the purpose was.
Yeah.
There's an actual, real physical manifestation of don't tear the fence down unless you know why it was put there. Metaphorically, all kind of things in life. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is something that you have to take a closer look at, and you use modern day examples of things that are occurring in our society, and I think there's a lot of people that they want to change everything, don't like this because of the historical connotation associated with it. Well, that's based on your current perception,
right,
and your emotional response to it. What it doesn't take into consideration is that additional thinking, that second order thinking of understanding and exploring with the intent of understanding why it was done that way to begin with. There may be a lot more to it. And when you respond merely from that single point of thinking, you have a tendency to change things that should not have been changed, and then end up suffering additional consequences that weren't considered, that you would have considered if you took the opportunity to think about that, the second step of it, and why it was done in the first place. And the thing that screamed out at me in reading that was kind of a business related aspect of it. When you have a purchase, for instance, one business purchases another business, or there's a merger, there's going to be a dominant culture potentially in that merger or that acquisition. And sometimes I think things are changed just for the sake of changing them to establish that dominance. So you can show that, we bought this business, now we're in charge and we're changing this. And then, things blow up in your face because you didn't actually take the time to understand why that policy or procedure had been enacted to begin with, and you start experiencing some of the fallout and the negative consequences that had been eliminated because of what had been established by the folks before you.
I love that you a couple minutes ago used the phrase higher order, second order thinking, and what that can lead to, because it really does lead to that if you take the time to think, and I hadn't thought of it specifically about the merger and acquisition example that you shared, but that is a freaking great example.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of that going on, and you're right. You're exactly right. Especially if it's a large company that purchases a small one, and they just say we're going to overlay our culture on top of yours.
And you'll see it too in like promotions. Somebody will get promoted, and in order to fulfill their desire to leave their mark on something, they may start implementing changes that aren't such good ideas.
Yeah.
And eliminating things that were done for very legitimate reasons. And it, I think it takes somebody with a broader mindset and the vision and the willingness to figure it out and really dive into it and understand why it was done that way to begin with.
Right. Yeah. Years ago, I remember experiencing an example of this, and that was there's a hotel, and the hotel, when you would check in, the people who check you in, the receptionist, I don't know what is the formal name of, is it, I don't know, they're just the hotel staff.
Yeah,
check you in.
The front desk staff.
There you go, front desk. They would engage in conversation about you personally that was like well beyond normal. It wasn't just, are you here to check in? Oh, and all the normal stuff. They were engaged in much more intense conversations with you about, what you like to read and who you were as a person. And you found out later that the reason that they were asking these questions is because they were tailoring the service that you were going to receive from them. But I remember walking away going, what on earth? Why are they doing this? Why are they asking me all these questions? And then you find out that you get the exact newspaper in front of your door.
Understanding their customer base and learning what matters to you.
Yeah. And there you go. Instead of just being annoyed that these people are bothering you with all these personal questions when you're checking in, taking a minute to go, why are they doing that? It might be that, but well, you knew that it wasn't just one person when every single person was demonstrating that kind of that kind of service to you and trying to get to know you. It was interesting. But anyway, yeah, taking a minute, and the company policies is another really good one, because a lot of people, especially new people to get hired and come into a company, they don't really understand what's behind some of the, there's always the typical stuff that goes on, all the kind of, but every once in a while you come across something and you go, well, that's different. And you may not like it, but before you decide you don't like it, you probably ought to take a minute and go, what is it about this company, and what is it about this circumstance, and what is it about this culture that makes this the way it is? Demonstrate that higher level of thinking and dig into it. And you might find that it's crap. but you might find that it's not crap, and there's a very good reason for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because there's an aspect of the company policy or that culture that drives me nuts, and it's this whole idea of establishing and identifying the values of your organization and what your mission and vision statement are.
Okay.
There's lots of companies out there that spend a tremendous amount of time and energy and money to have people facilitate these events where they identify these things, and then a year later you go back and ask any of the employees what the values of the organization are, what's the mission, what's the vision, etc. And oftentimes they can't tell you. And in my mind, that was a waste of money, waste of time, money, and energy. And it's got to be communicated. I use our motorcycle club as an example. We have core values in our organization, and every single one of our members knows them. Forward, backward, sideways. They can recite them at any moment, and that's critical. It's the glue that holds the organization together. And when you work in an organization and you don't know what those are, and you don't see the consistency in behavior associated with the ones maybe that you do know, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So you have to know what they are, and you have to hold each other accountable for them, to them. And I just, it bugs me when I see it not playing out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. Another example that actually is very heartening to me about the founding of America, when you go back and look at the many, many documents that were a part of, I will call them the founding documents of America. But even before there was a Constitution, even before there was a Declaration of Independence, there is volumes and volumes of information about what the founders of the country were reading and thinking and discussing before they ended up doing what they did. And so many people don't really understand that. And when you don't understand that, then it doesn't give you the appreciation that I think is necessary for why things were written the way they were. And that's really important. Another example that I just thought of, you and I have talked about it on previous podcasts. Piers Morgan and Ben Shapiro were talking about gun control.
Right.
It's
a great interview, by the way. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
And Piers Morgan has very much, in my opinion, a modern day interpretation of that law, of that amendment to the Constitution, and he's applying what's going on today, and therefore uses today's events and activities to support his position. And Ben Shapiro is educating him by saying, go back and think about why this was put into place in the first place, and then try to imagine that could actually happen again today. Of course, Piers Morgan said, ain't no way that's going to happen. You think that your own government is going to turn on you? And Ben Shapiro said, yeah, I think it's possible.
Right. Are there any examples in history? Yeah.
But there's a great example of why the Second Amendment is what it is.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand the history of it, and I didn't mean to get on the Second Amendment, everything about the Constitution, everything about every constitutional amendment that's been put out there is good reason behind it. There is a good reason that those fences were put up. And if you don't understand it and you just walk in without the context, without the historical perspective on that issue, whatever it is, then you're not gonna have the depth of knowledge. You're not going to demonstrate that higher order of thinking that you need to be able to make an informed and good decision about that. So
yeah, I think it's absolutely amazing to think about our founding fathers of America, this country, and the foresight that they had, right? So they were fixing problems that they had experienced under another government,
right,
and putting things in place to prevent it from happening in their new government.
Right.
And for them to have that ability to, not only identify the problems they've experienced, and that's fairly easy to do, right? They've lived that. But to be able to write things in such a way to prepare for the long haul, to make sure that the new country that they were founding didn't succumb to those same things. It's really impressive when you look at it through that lens. And you use the Second Amendment. That's a great example. And I think that anybody that can't believe that it was possible in today's age for something like that to happen is not paying attention to recent history around the world. There's modern day examples within the last decade or so of exactly that happening.
The fact that the founders put into place the things they did, the checks and balances they did, the wisdom that they demonstrated in putting all of that together. And here, 250 years later, it's still operating. It's changed a lot. It's been attacked many times, continues to be attacked to this very day, but it is still standing. It's flexible. It's evolving. It's amazing, actually. It's amazing. It's unprecedented in the history of the world.
It's restrictive enough and broad enough for interpretation,
right?
To stand the test of time.
Far from perfect, but yeah. Now, on the other side of this coin, there are times where it is good to tear down the fences. You do understand, why it was put there. And you say, wow, okay, that doesn't apply anymore, or that was unnecessary, or that was plain wrong. Sometimes getting just real about it, the fence was put there because the farmer who built the house and put up the fence liked a fence there because it gave him privacy, but the house is gone, the whole farm has changed, and there's no need for a fence in that location. I mean, whatever. Just kind of, making up a story. You know what I mean, though? There's no need for a fence there anymore.
Yeah.
But metaphorically, a thing that immediately popped to mind is after emancipation of when Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, what happened for the next 100 years or so? Jim Crow laws went into effect. And so there were still laws on the book that disenfranchised African Americans in a variety of different ways, supported all across the country in a variety of ways. And, over the period of the last probably, 30, 40 years, most all of those have been broken down and taken away. And, those were fences that needed to come down.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're living in somewhat of a historic time right now with the establishment of a new national holiday, new federal holiday with Juneteenth.
Yep.
And I think that is a good thing.
Yep.
To be able to call that out, identify what it is, and continue to educate our children and the rest of our population that might not be familiar with it. And I think it's a good thing all the way around. I don't. The one thing that I did take some issue with is I don't like that it was identified as an Independence Day. And I think that there were some folks that voted against it for that reason. They didn't like that terminology because there's some potential for confusion between America's actual Independence Day as a country on July 4th being in such close proximity to Juneteenth. But other than that was the only thing I had a little bit of a rub with. Other than that, I think it's a great idea, and it was cool to see local celebrations and the communications that were going on as a result of it. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Another example of this concept that it's far from perfect, and that is the American judicial system. The American judicial system is required when you are in the court of law defending yourself. You are relying on past precedents. You're relying on previous rulings. You are relying on the history of the law that was put there in the first place and why you might be challenging it today and why it needs to be different. It is flawed. There are all kind of problems with it. There's no doubt about it. But as bad as it is, again, like so many aspects of America, it's better than anything else out there. And the fact that those things get to be taken into consideration when judgments are being made about how to go forward. Far from perfect, and people are people, and there are biases and there are prejudices, even among judges and juries, no doubt about it. But still, they're required to go through the process of looking at what the history of the law, previous rulings on the law, and so on. And that is something that helps you understand why those fences, why those laws were put there in the first place. And so I get comfort out of that. Now, again, I don't think it's perfect, and I can tell you about specific decisions that I'm aware of and personally been involved with in a few cases where I completely disagreed with how it turned out. But I still have faith in the system. I do. So I don't know.
So what do you think, using this this example of fences and maybe broadening the interpretation thereof a little bit, how do you think that mindset can translate over into relationships, like personal relationships?
Oh man, that's a great transition. Great question. Oh my goodness, how many times, especially early in a relationship, do you come into it going, I do not understand why you're behaving the way you're behaving, when you're talking about your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, even your children sometimes. Yeah, you'll say, I don't, can you? Yeah, if you just say, wow, that was out of bounds, I didn't like that, I'm just going to shut that down right now. It's over. Don't ever do that again, without really understanding why that happened in the first place. Take a minute, pump the brakes, and say, okay, let's talk about this. Something happened. I strongly disagree with it. I vehemently don't like it, whatever the circumstance is. And then you say, why'd you do that? What's behind that? Tell me what it was. I think you must have a specific example.
No, I'm just listening, and
Okay.
you're absolutely, echoing the things that are going on in my head. I think that oftentimes people go into a relationship and they identify things that they don't like about that partner that they're engaging in this relationship with, and then they start trying to change that person. And newsflash, you can't change anyone except for you. You're the only person that you have any power over changing. Anybody else, it's going to be up to them to make any changes that they want to make. Now, you can, having said that, you can influence that change potentially by asking questions or making recommendations or communicating how that behavior or how that whatever the position is on something impacts you, because it might enable that individual to then take a look at it and realize, something they might not have known, right? So didn't know it was landing on you that way or having that impact on you, and they might be willing to alter their behavior or change their stance on something as a result. And if you don't have the conversation, then it's never going to work out. And again, don't go into a relationship looking at somebody and thinking, oh, I'm gonna change them. Not going to happen.
Great advice. And I can tell you with personal experience, and many people listening know this, when you go into a relationship thinking that you got it all figured out and that you're right, and that, you got to take the time to understand many of the failures in my previous relationship, which I will own my portions of, had exactly to do with this. It was the perception of different worldviews and not taking the time to figure those out and talk through them. And how many people out there can say that they have suffered through the same thing, and
I think most everybody at some point or another.
Everybody. And the truth is, you really don't know the person that you're marrying. It doesn't matter how long you've lived with them, if you've lived with them beforehand. That commitment of getting married and going through that and then learning about who that person is over time in that circumstance is you yeah.
Yeah, you need to tell that story. The source of that laughter.
No, it applies. The concept applies perfectly in the relationship arena. To take the time and demonstrate the higher level thinking, the second order thinking, to say, wow, where did that come from? Tell me why you did that, or why you do that, or that specific circumstance where you said that, and so that I can understand.
Right. And do it from a position of a calm, cool head, really, with a genuine interest in understanding, and not a position of opposition or confrontation. That's not going to work out so well. Seek to understand, and
I was just going to say that, yeah.
And also, you've heard me say before, assume positive intent, because when you're in a relationship with somebody that you care about and they care about you, you have to, in good faith, I think, believe that one doesn't set out to hurt the other intentionally. And oftentimes people will say things or engage in behavior that is hurtful to the other person and has no idea that that's the case. And I think, as a person that may have been hurt by that behavior or whatever the communication was, I think you have an obligation to communicate that back and give that other person the benefit of greater understanding and the opportunity to potentially do it different.
Yeah. Give them the benefit of the doubt, especially in committed relationships where you're working it out and that you're wanting to make it work, because it is hard work. That everybody who's in a relationship, a committed relationship, knows that that's the case, and it's hard. And if you don't take the time to do what you just said, to ask the questions and communicate about whatever the issue is, ultimately those things, they don't go away, they fester.
No, and I think folks that watch this podcast, watch us on video or listen to the audio, know that we're not communicating theories here. We're talking about life experience and the wisdom of the ages. And the reason I can share that information with you is because I've fucked it up enough times on my own to know how to now do it a better way.
Amen. Yeah, me too. And having the scars to talk about it. I think you and I have talked about this before, but this just flashed to my mind. Think about times where you're at a family reunion, and have we talked about this recently? I can't remember if I was talking to you about it or somebody else, but
it's not ringing a bell.
You're at a family reunion, and the youngsters, when I say the youngsters, I mean the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, some issue will come up, and everybody will kind of start talking about it, and then in some cases arguing about it, and in some cases people really get kind of in each other's faces about, how dare you think this, how dare you think that, how can you're so stupid, all of the
nice.
Okay, and then, but there's the old folks, like the grandparents or the great grandparents, that are kind of sitting in their easy chair watching all this take place, and they're just at peace. They're just kind of watching it all happen. They're not getting involved. They're not taking sides. They're just being still, being quiet, watching it all happen. And it's not because they're old and disconnected. It's because they've been there, done that.
They're reflecting.
And they know how stupid all of this is. They know why those fences were put there that you don't know because you haven't had enough life experience to enjoy. Seriously, pay attention. Next time you're at a family reunion and you got the elders there and you see them, they just don't care because they realize it's all bullshit. All the stuff you're talking about doesn't matter. It's so small in the grand scheme of life that they're just like...
Yeah, they care about much different things.
Yes.
Because they've learned that those are, the things that get you all spun up and you allow to ruin your day or your week or a relationship, oftentimes are things that, 10, 15 years later you could give a shit less about.
Right.
And you let it do that, the way you responded to it. E plus R equals O.
Right. And because I've seen it, and they've seen it from a number of additional angles that you haven't seen. They've experienced it, they've lived it, they've felt it, and they're just like, it's all noise.
Well, and they also know that it's not going to do any good at that time to approach any of them and try to communicate something different to them.
Right.
Because you've got the emotions associated with whatever it is that's going on.
Right.
And, there may be another opportunity down the road when those emotions have subsided to communicate, maybe the possibility of looking at this situation a little differently. And they might be open to hearing it at that point, but not when, not in the heat of the moment in many cases.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And when you sit down with them the next day, next to them in the easy chair, the rocking chair, and you say, "Hey, Grandma, what do you think about that?" And Grandma tells you, "This is what I think about this." And, it's calm and it's cool and makes sense. And you go, "Wow, where'd you come up with that?"
Yeah, and you get the truth, man. It's like, it's that circle of life. You come into life with no fears and no filters, except for maybe those couple natural fears that we've talked about before, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. But other than that, no fears, no filters. And then you might go out of your life with some fears still, but they start to subside over time, and the filters definitely fucking go away. Bit by bit, as time goes on, you start to give a shit less and less about how other people react to things when you tell them the truth. It's sometimes people just need to hear the truth.
Yeah. But I do love absorbing, and you and I are entering older years in our life. I got a long way to go, and so do you. I know, and I know you want to live to be quite old, as do
Amen.
I.
I'm breaking triple digits, man.
But the thing is, and I was talking to somebody about this. Who was I talking to recently? Something about, doesn't matter. When I was in college, and I think I've said this before, I had such profound, deeply held beliefs about the world, about what I thought about right and wrong, about how I was going to approach things, how things were going to turn out, who I was going to be, what I was going to do. And I can tell you, and I can tell you,
how much of that played out.
I could not have been more wrong about all of that. And I know if you're 20-something and you're listening to this or you're watching this, you think I'm nuts. You think you know everything. You think you've got it. I'm telling you, you don't got it. And you ain't going to know that until you're my age. And it ain't going to happen.
If you live that long.
Right. Right. And it's amazing.
If you don't get a hold of your bad decision making before then.
It's totally humbling and humiliating in some cases to realize. When I think back, I can remember, I was in the library studying when I was in college. And I was having a conversation with a person that I knew about religion. And I mean, the things I said and the convictions that I had that went to the core of my being could not have been more wrong. And it's amazing how I didn't understand why all the fences were put there. And so I was ready to this is the only fence. This is the way it goes. This is where it turns. All of that. And
yeah. Oh, I catch myself all the time now, reacting to things in a certain way, in a much more calm way, a much more accepting way, and in almost to a T. Every time it happens, I have a flashback to how I have not acted that way in the response to that same type scenario in years past.
Right.
And it just causes me to smile.
Right.
Because I know that, I've grown and, expanded my thinking, and it's just, it's cool. It's cool when it happens.
Yeah, it is. But wisdom does. As long as you're paying attention and trying to improve, it does come with age. And there's just no other way to get there. You're not going to, there are very, very wise people, wise beyond their years. You hear that. That person's wise beyond their years. And there are old souls who kind of can do that. That's pretty unusual. Most people are not like that. Most people are kind of follow the natural bell curve of all other people, and then you're sort of one of the many.
Yeah. So, kind of wrapping this up or summarizing, there are fences put in place, that metaphorical fence. There's policies and procedures in organizations. There are ways to behave in relationships and interact with other people. And, many of those things have stood the test of time. So don't just arbitrarily, get on your own little bandwagon and decide that, hey, it's time to start changing this stuff because I don't like it, without fully understanding the reasons that they may have been put in place to begin with. And once you do that, then it may be time to make changes with the full knowledge and understanding and appreciation of why it was done that way to begin with. and also, having the ability to, look at, what might happen, understand the potential consequences associated with those changes, and then the consequences of those consequences, and really play it out. Think very broadly before you start making some sweeping changes to age-old established positions.
Yeah, well said. The thought that popped to mind as you were talking about that is you as a former Marine. No, I'm sorry, you're not a former. You as a Marine.
There's no such thing.
Who is no longer on active duty.
There you go.
There you go. A Marine who is no longer on active duty, and me as a retired military officer who was transferred every 2 or 3 years, for 20 years. And every time you would get transferred into a new job, you would be thinking, wow, you're in a leadership position, you might be in a command position, and you're kind of looking around and you're thinking, there's, in accordance with my command philosophy and my leadership philosophy, there's some things here that I don't like that you see on day one.
Oh, absolutely.
But then you got to take a minute, because if you just go in and, like you just said, if you just go in and like the bull in the china closet and start plowing over and knocking things down and implementing, people that are working with you and for you are going to go, wow, that person has no idea what they're doing.
Right.
Take a minute.
Yeah.
Take a minute. Study it. Find out. Ask questions. Demonstrate that higher order of thinking and say, why is it that we do this on this ship?
Right.
I don't understand. I've never seen it before. What's going on? There must be a good reason for it. Whatever.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I want to call this out. There's a caveat with that, because I also believe, I don't want people to get the wrong impression that we don't think it's a good idea when somebody new comes into an organization in a new leadership position and makes changes. That's not what we're saying at all. Making changes
need to be torn down.
Making changes for the sake of making changes just to establish your presence is not a good thing.
Right.
Because I do think, as a new leader taking over a new role, there is a window of the precise time when you come in, and people are expecting change because they've got a change in leadership, so they expect some change to come with that. Just make sure that it's the right change, and that you've thought through it and evaluated, use that second order of thinking and evaluated, why it was done that way, why it's been done that way for years, and, what kind of consequences are going to be associated with making the change, and what kind of consequences are going to be associated with those consequences, and really think it through. There's definitely a window, though, so don't get the wrong idea there that you shouldn't make change, because sometimes it's absolutely called for.
You bet. Some fences need to come down.
Indeed.
That's it. That summarizes it all for me. Well said.
All right. You too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Good conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
And good beer, right?
Yeah.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you as well.
As we reach around the microphones. Right. Cheers to y'all. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube or whatever platform you're listening to us on, so you'll get notified when we post new episodes. And as we've said the last few episodes...
Wait, hold on. I was going to say, were you going to tell about the our second anniversary event? Is that
No, I wasn't. I was actually going to call out the Virginia T-shirt company and remind them of
call them out.
Yeah, the great things that those folks do. The hats they hooked us up with, and that background that you saw in the last episode that they made for us. And you've got promotional needs, or you've got a team or a club or something you want to show your pride. Check these guys out, vatshirt.com.
Yeah, great folks, and they do great business. And I also wanted to say we have our second anniversary celebration coming up, 6 Bears and a Goat. We're going to be doing it live, and so we invite all of you to attend that want to, live and in person. We're going to be recording in front of a live audience who gets to participate in the podcast.
Right.
It won't be. We're not going to stream it live, are we?
No. It'll be recorded with a live audience and then posted
a
few days. Yeah, a few days after that.
Okay.
But you'll have an opportunity to be in that audience and ask questions. There'll be a microphone there awaiting your arrival with questions that you might have based on previous content that you've heard us talk about, or something that you haven't heard us talk about that you'd like some insight on. So yeah, come with some loaded questions.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you there for sure.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
But until then, or until the next episode, make sure that no matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, that you take time to enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.